You might think starting out employing ex-offenders is simple. You go to a prison, you offer one person or a few people an opportunity, and you give it a go, providing you've done a bit of research on the legal side and spoken to some employers in this space. Sure, there'll be a few bumps in the road, but your management generally buy into this, so we should give it a go, right? Employing people with criminal records is a surefire way to fill vacancies, significantly improve your retention, and win more government contracts, all whilst making your community safer and giving hard-working and willing people another chance. Timson, the high street shoe cobbler, sees 10% of their workforce recruited from those with a criminal past, and their retention is 3 times higher than the industry average. What could triple retention mean for your business? My name is Jacob Hill and I'm an ex-prisoner and run a social enterprise consultancy that supports employers like you to hire people like me. To date, I've supported major brands like Serco, Balfour Beatty and Sunbelt Rentals to unlock over 60,000 vacancies for people with criminal records. In this video, I will share with you the 5 most common mistakes I see companies making when starting out in employing people with a criminal past. Stick around to the end because I'll also be sharing how you as an employer can access free resources, saving you thousands in fines and consultancy costs. So, here are 5 common mistakes I see companies making when employing people with criminal convictions. Common mistake number 1, confusing ex-offenders with ex-prisoners. Before I went to prison, the only idea I had of an ex-offender was the Shawshank Redemption, Prison Break, and Orange is the New Black. In fact, my cellmate was called Mr. Big, where my only reference for this name was Carrie's love interest from the popular HBO series Sex and the City. So it gives you an idea of what I might have been expecting when going to prison. Where I expected to find Hollywood-style prisoners, I found people from all walks of life, desperate for a second chance, but didn't believe they were going to get one, and even if they did not think they would be good enough for one. This is why I started Offploy. So first off, terminology matters. Ex-offender is a term used by the government to categorise anyone with a criminal past. If I'm honest, it doesn't conjure up the best image to colleagues or individuals with a past when you're looking at an inclusive programme. I'd suggest changing wording to people with criminal records, people with criminal convictions, or just people with a criminal past. And if your programme needs a name, consider Justice Inclusion Programme. Wording is important to shift mindsets. Shared understanding is essential to unify teams. But the biggest misconception I see, it's assuming ex-offenders, people with criminal records as we'll now call them, are all ex-prisoners. Now let me set this straight. All ex-prisoners are people with criminal records. But not all people with criminal records are ex-prisoners. Let me explain. The UK is an island of criminals with 1 in 4 adults of working age, about 12.6 million people having a criminal record. Over 50% are for driving-related offences. In fact, only 1 in 10 of those sentenced by a judge go to prison. The rest of the people with criminal convictions receive community-based sentences. Most people with criminal records have never seen the inside of a prison cell, instead receiving fines, court orders, cautions, or even community service. We need to change perceptions and remove the association that criminal record equals prison. My challenge to you, dear viewer, is to show people this video. Get people with lived experience to share their story at your place of work. Or even just show your colleagues a few celebrities like Hugh Grant, Ant from Ant and Dec, Gino D'Acampo, and even Princess Anne, who have prior criminal convictions, to really change their mindsets and perceptions. So when you're looking at benefiting from the employment of people with convictions, ensure everyone on your inclusive journey has a sound understanding of what having a criminal conviction means. They may even realise that they could have been one of those 4 adults that you are considering employing. Common mistake number 2. Companies go straight to prisons to find talent with convictions. The first common mistake covered the important definitions between people with criminal records and ex-prisoners. Now remember, all ex-prisoners are people with criminal records, but not all people with criminal records are ex-prisoners. Without this understanding, I see companies make this next mistake constantly. They want to benefit from hiring people with criminal records, so they go straight to prisons. They're encouraged and welcome to look around the prisons. They may attend some in-custody job fairs. They may even hold some dedicated interview days and offer people employment on day release. This is where they work out of the prison during the day and go back to sleep there in the night. This is good work. It's impactful to a few, but there are several fundamental flaws in starting out with this model. I won't get into them all now, but pressures and strains come from low availability of people in prisons, the time investment to get these programs set up, and the lack of certainty on who someone will be on their release and even where they will be released to. Employing from prisons is an end game strategy when you're confidently recruiting from the community and your own applicant pool. Then you can invest in getting involved with prisons. Once companies realise that 1 in 4 of their applicants and colleagues are people with criminal records, and that the most impactful activity isn't going straight to the prisons, but instead looking at their own culture, policies and processes first, this enables them to really unlock the value of employing people with criminal convictions. This leads me on to common mistake number 3. Companies don't have their own house in order first. If the first common mistake is having a solid understanding of the definition of someone with a conviction, and the second mistake is not diving straight into prison recruitment, the third is not having your own culture, policies and processes in order before doing any proactive recruitment. Imagine if 25% of your revenue came from a single audience. Your sales team would have content on your website, training, neat brochures, and customer checklists for onboarding to ensure you've covered everything. So why don't we have the same for 25% of our applicants? Recruitment fees, job advertisements, mishires, and poor retention cost companies thousands per hire, even in the lowest salary jobs. Getting this right and benefiting from the triple retention companies see is essential for saving costs, as well as making your justice inclusion program not just a side project, but business as usual. Our most engaged clients who get it right understand exactly where and how they ask the question around convictions. They track applications and retention, linking to a strong business case for a sustainable project. They've documented everything they do, from conducting risk-based interviews to dismissing a colleague due to their conviction in a fair, legal and compliant manner. They have an excellent colleague and candidate experience, even when they cannot accept the candidate due to the risk of the role. On the flip side, I get messages all the time from companies asking if I can send people to their vacancies, yet their job adverts or career pages shares no information on and if and when the disclosure of the most shameful part of our candidate's life will be required. If disclosure is required, there is seldom further reading on how information will be assessed, who will be told, and what will happen to their data afterwards. This isn't just about doing the right thing for an excellent candidate experience. It's about being compliant under UK GDPR. Yet only 16% of companies have a criminal records policy. If you're watching this and don't have a policy, I would suggest accessing our free template in the toolkit linked below. I won't go into much more detail on policies in this video, but my suggestion to companies is to put together 2 policy documents or 2 career page examples. They can be private for now. The first should outline the exact process someone goes through, applicant or existing colleague, when disclosing their conviction to you right now, as though it was happening today. Who do they tell? What questions are they asked? How is a decision made, then communicated? What happens to the data once you have it? The second policy or career page should then outline what you want your ideal scenario to be. You can come along to our webinar for inspiration on this. I've also linked that below. But just getting something on paper is a great place to start that should balance the resources in your company, the candidate experience, and obviously should always be legally sound. This ensures you have a full business approach to employing people with convictions, rather than just a one-off project or pilot that only exists for as long as you stay around. Which brings me on to common mistake number 4. treating criminal record recruitment as a side project or a pilot rather than business as usual. I get it. You've got outcomes and a limited pot of money. Perhaps you just need to employ so many people with criminal records on that local government contract that wants to see 2 full-time equivalents. Maybe the Ministry of Justice has just awarded you a £1.2 billion project to build a prison and wants to see 100 prison leavers within 6 weeks of release working for you, but obviously not on that very project due to vetting concerns. Wouldn't it be amazing if your company had the processes and systems in place to proactively employ people with convictions, and even recognise when an applicant has a conviction to offer them a guaranteed interview? This can be said for any socially excluded group and projects with inclusion outcomes. It would be a relief for social impact leaders and contract managers alike if the talent attraction and HR teams were aware of the targets and their importance to aid with contract delivery and renewal, rather than these departments to be seen as a barrier when you want to get a great candidate into the role, but the computer says no. This is why inclusive recruitment might be prompted by a project, but the systems and culture need to be in place long before the hires are required. We found the best way to do this is focus on the wider business benefits, particularly the departmental benefits above your required social inclusion or contract outcomes. Talent attraction, struggling to find people for their roles? 25% of the working age population has a conviction, and the most inclusive employers are getting access to the best talent in this cohort right now. HR struggling with retention or re-advertising roles? People with convictions stick around at a rate 3 times greater than those without convictions. If you're watching this and you've made it this far, you are what we would call a social inclusion champion. I'm sorry to tell you this, but this project lives and dies with you. The only way to scale it up and make it bigger than you is to make it part of your organization's culture and make it business as usual. To do that, you need to link back to change some hearts and minds on what a person with a criminal record is. See mistake number 1. And then link their employment back to the business benefits, not your projects, not the individual, and not wider society. They're all nice incidentals to a risk-averse board looking to maximise profits, improve their retention, and maybe look good whilst doing it. The real key to turning from a side project or an inclusion project to business as usual is bringing the right people on board. And that brings us on to common mistake number 5. Companies don't bring the right stakeholders on the journey from the beginning. When I first started out convincing companies to employ people with convictions, I thought it made sense to go for HR leaders. After all, they handle all the people matters, they say yes or no to hires, they're often responsible for learning and development. I couldn't have asked for a better target client. Except there were a few flaws. Inclusion tends to be themed and focused for a year to 3 years. If you miss the boat, you've got to wait for the next cycle of project focus. Funding isn't available for proactive measures. It tends to only be used for tribunals, contingent labour, or expensive recruiters for hard-to-fill vacancies. Working with people with convictions sounds a bit risky and like a lot of work, and until it becomes a protected characteristic, we'll keep it over there for consideration, but won't be able to prioritise it right now. Plus, HR leaders are super expensive to target on LinkedIn ads, and everyone is dropping in their DMs with technology offers, compliance services, or maybe just asking for a job. Lots of noise to compete with. This is where I found the holy grail of inclusive employment, a niche group of people with obscure job titles, working in something that sounds very fluffy. They could run community centres, they could run the local social media team. It's not very clear actually. Yeah, I think you've guessed it. Social impact or social value practitioners. They are the unsung heroes of inclusive business. They're tasked with achieving the contracted social value outcomes on the big projects, whilst getting a few snaps of the managing director showing some children around a construction site, all in their hard hats of course. It's often an isolating and sometimes underrated role, an afterthought where the individual, so desperately driven to make an impact in the world, has to find a way to tie the numbers to all the amazing stories they hear and present them in regular commissioner meetings or end-of-year reports. All of our best clients I work with see the social impact team, the HR team, comms, legal, and the board work in unison. Not for the goal of employing people with convictions, but instead using the vehicle of employing people with convictions to achieve their organisation's wider goals. This could include everything from multi-billion-pound social value targets to contract wins and successful delivery. It could be about reducing attrition or filling vacancies. It is almost never about employing a specific number of people with convictions. For you watching this video, I want to help you bring the team on board. We're specialists in supporting companies with 1,000+ staff, usually in a government supply chain, to bring the right people on board. But it all goes back to point number one, ensuring everyone knows what we mean when we say people with criminal records, and just how exceptional these humans can be when given a chance and pointed to something that matters. So here's my question to you. Who do you need to bring on board to make employing people with convictions in your business a sustainable success? And that's it. We've made it to the end of the video. As promised, I wanted to share some free resources for you to benefit from employing people with convictions. I have an upcoming webinar where I talk all about the business case and 7 principles of employing people with criminal records. It's free to join, but I limit space to ensure a good discussion throughout. I've put the link in the description below. We also have a heap of free resources in our Employers Toolkit, everything from risk assessments to compliant policies. We're going to begin charging for these eventually, but for now you can get them for free from our website. The link is also in the description below. But if you're serious about this work and want to save hours of missteps and fumbles, as well as find out about any compliance issues and fines you may face as early as possible, you might want to consider the Offploy Launchpad. Working alongside our expert team with lived experience, trusted by FTSE 100 companies, we will support you to get current, compliant and confident, understanding your entire criminal record data flow and flagging up any potential issues that could result in fines equivalent to 4% of your revenue. Build a board-ready business case. This project is only as good as you caring about it or you staying with this employer. We will link your inclusive recruitment to legal and compliance, recruitment and retention, social impact and business development targets to bring the executives on the journey so you can scale this impact infinitely. Create an actionable roadmap to sustainable impact. We'll put a robust strategy together that maps your current scenario to your ultimate business case. What steps do you need to take to go from where you are to where you want to be, whilst prioritizing the easy wins early on? Run a stakeholder buy-in workshop, a powerful stakeholder workshop delivered by people with lived experience that brings your justice employment strategy to life and turns skeptics into supporters, so you leave the room with real buy-in for a sustainable justice employment project. We deliver all 4 of these outcomes for businesses as a package in our Offploy Justice Launchpad. If you want to start truly benefiting from employing people with convictions to fill vacancies, triple retention, and win more business, get in touch with a member of our team. I've put a link to booking a call with us in the description below. As ever, I love to read your comments and questions. Let me know how you're getting on in employing people with convictions, and thank you. Thank you for believing in a world where every person is safe from crime.